Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Life Talks. Today I'm happy to have on Jerry, who you can find him on Twitter. His tag is men_of_grit. It's the same thing also on Instagram. Jerry, thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah, man. I just appreciate it, Michael. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, my pleasure. I actually just started this video with you, but we started a conversation. We got into it for about 15 minutes, and I want to just dive right into it. We were talking about what it means to follow Christ and what that really means. That I think, at least how I interpret it, just what we were talking about, I think a lot of the time when we hear the word Christ, it becomes like, it's like this hippie version of Jesus, where it's just like, oh, he was such a nice guy. And no, he was a man's man. And it was the pinnacle of what it is to be a man. So maybe if we could just dive right into it, what that means to you.
Yeah, this is something I'm passionate about, because I've told people that, my Savior that I followed, Jesus, was a man's man. And as you and I were talking, one of the examples that I talk to people about all the time is I say, hey, think about this. How many men today could go out into the wild, into the wilderness for 40 days? Now, we're not even talking about fasting. We're not talking about the spiritual warfare that Jesus faced there. I'm just talking about, how many men do you know that can go by themselves alone into the wild for 40 days? And then step back and say, what kind of man would that be?
What
kind of man would it take? Yeah, very few, right? And I think about that because as you and I were talking, doctrinally, Jesus had to be 100% human, yet without sin, in order to be our representative, to be the one that would be sacrificed on our behalf. He had to be 100% human. So he didn't get any, as you and I were talking, Jesus, when he faced temptation, he never gave in. So he felt the full brunt of temptation. So his strength had to be way more than our strength, but he faced that as the God man, and he faced that like the humanity side of him. He had to be a man's man. As we talked about, he went into the conflicts that he had with the religious leaders of the day. He did that on their territory, their home turf, by himself. Many times his disciples were back behind him saying, hey, bud, do you know you offended those guys and everything? Yeah. So they weren't like backing him up. He was there.
Yeah, and that's huge now, right? It's all external validation rather than internal validation. The kingdom of heaven is within. It's just another way of saying get to your heart, connect with your heart. That's your GPS system. Like, get sin representing ignorance, get rid of your guilt, your shame, understand it, and let it go. And to confront, because when you do that, that's where you have the ability to confront people, because it doesn't feel good to have people hate you. It's not a good feeling, but the ability to endure is only possible through the heart. It's only possible because when people are yelling at you or you lose your job or somebody leaves you, or people, the pain of life, you can only deal with that internally. And the ability of Christ to confront that. Look in our world, people are afraid to say what they think because of political correctness. So I'm 100% agreement with you.
Yeah, that strength that I see in him when I read the Gospels, I try to take the time not to read through too fast. So when I see 40 days in the wild, when he goes out into the wilderness, I just stop and think about that for a while. I said, okay, put myself in his shoes. What kind of man would it take? How hard would that be? Well, that's not easy. That's a hard thing. That's a thing that most men in today's world couldn't do. So you start to get a different picture of who Jesus was when he was here on earth. And I see that a lot. The men he related to, how they related to him, how he was a protector, people that that were sidelined by society. Those are the ones that he went to. He went to them. He wanted to make sure that they recognized the fact that this message, who I am and what I bring here, this salvation is for you. And these are people that thought
the one
they had
quote
no
where
chance,
he goes
right?
out for the one and leave the many. Yeah. What's that exact quote?
Yeah, about him leaving the 99 sheet for the one. Yeah, absolutely. So, and he's got that fierce warrior heart, and we're going to see that on the second coming when he comes back. Revelation talks a lot about that too, and that's where we see the full warrior. And so, yeah, it's that's something that's where I gain a lot of my strength. The foundation of my strength is found in my relationship with the Lord. And so, but I did a whole Men of Grit Bible study on that, just on that side of looking at that side of Jesus, and of course him going to the cross and understanding what he was going to endure there. And putting his nose in the grind, and
we have anxiety, but sweating blood. Can you imagine like that type of anxiety? Because that's absolutely. And I'm always. It's so crazy to think about, like his last line is "Forgive them; they know not what they do." Right? Like this power is just like, because when people, when people hurt you, or even like when Judas went against him, he knew it. And it's this idea that he felt bad for him. Like that kind of power is insane, because we have with the ego, until that ego is really that ego work, you overcome your ego. It's when people hurt you, where there's that inclination to react. But he was so, the fact of saying, can you imagine being persecuted, nailed to a cross, and then saying, it's forgive them. They don't realize what they're doing, because what they're doing is they're projecting the own pain on their heart onto somebody. And we do that every day. Crucifying now is when you say, it's verbal altercation, right? It's saying to crucify somebody is verbal. But imagine the physical, and then to have somebody being that, but they're so at peace within, they're feeling the pain. But to have that, to me, that always stuck. Like to envision that is just so powerful. And when you see people, to me, someone who's truly spiritual, and I want to talk about this with you big time, is what does it mean to be an alpha male? Because that word has a million different meanings for different people. But for me, in the past couple of years, I've just grown into the realization a real alpha man is someone who is at peace. Because that's someone you really got to worry about, because that's someone who has the ability to really, there's wisdom there. There's someone who, it's like, you don't mess with someone who's wise. You don't mess with people who are wise, right? Because they have the ability to disarm you without doing it. Like there's so much power there, and they're not afraid. To me, that also connects to a lack of fear of death. And those are the people who are truly powerful. It's the paradox of that, right? He who knows everything knows nothing. Well, he who's totally at peace is really the strongest, right? Not the one who's flailing around and pretending to be that.
Well, and I think you saw that in Christ. He knew who he was, and he knew what his relationship with the Father. That relationship with the Father was so strong. Like he knew who he was, and he knew he had the Father's love, and that relationship was the core. And so and I think it's that way with us too. I think about this all the time. I think about the fact that no matter what this world brings my way, good, bad, ugly, whatever this world brings, I know where I'm going to end up because of my relationship with Christ. I know where my end is. The battle is won. The cross is over. The resurrection occurred. My trust in him ensures, the Bible speaks about hope, and hope biblically isn't about like this thing where I'm going to throw the coin in the wishing well and I hope this happens. Hope, biblical hope, is something where It's a truth that is guaranteed, but we haven't yet experienced it. And that's the hope that we have that's in Christ. So we have this salvation. So there is a real peace to knowing that your battle is already won. Your ultimate battle against sin and the thing that separates you from God, it's already won. And so as I go through life, no matter how bad it gets, I know where I'm going to end up. And I just have such a calm and peace and strength that comes from that. And that's all tied into my relationship with Christ. You know, he did the work. And so it's done. He said on the cross, it is finished. It's done, right? It's over. The payment has been paid. The debt has been canceled. You're in. And faith in him, that becomes applied to me. So that is such a powerful thing to be able to go through life that way. And I want to jump on something else that you said, because I think it's really important. You know, I don't know the term alpha male and things like that. I never really zeroed in on that, but I do know this. A solid man is a man, as you said, that is at peace internally. You beat your demons. You settle the things inside that caused you to have this lack of confidence in who you are, right? That man knows who he is, and he's strong in who he is. You know, I say all the time, you know, I did a lot of hard work. I you know, lifetime member in the Fraternity of Excellence. I did a lot of hard work in there, both physically, mentally, and spiritually, and still am, to make myself a solid man. But I did a lot of that mental work, because there were things in my past where, you know, I battled porn and I battled a bunch of different things. And yeah. And so I needed to understand what's the root cause to these things. And I had these things rolling around in my mind, and they would not enable me to be a strong man. So external validation and you know, the opinions of others and all these types of things impacted me in ways they shouldn't have. And the reason they did was because I wasn't settled inside. Yeah. And today I know who I am. I know what my mission is. I know where I'm going. And man, I'm solid with that today. You know, I'm not going to say that I've arrived, because I haven't. I'm in process. But I am so much further than what I was. And a lot of that's because I had to do some work inside. I had to look at myself and say, you know, what's rolling around in my head? How do I think about myself? And I had to figure out, you know, what's true and what's not. The things that are lies, why am I thinking that?
Yeah, you spoke about that. It was either a week or two ago when we spoke.
Yeah.
And maybe you could share that too while we're talking about you said to write these things down. Maybe if you can go into that, you write them down, and then the three things.
Yeah, I wrote a blog article on my blog. I just wrote an article, just came out not too long ago, because this is something that I've had this discussion with a lot of guys, and a lot of guys have asked me about, you know, this mental work. And you know, I would take the time to write down everything that I could think about, that I think about myself. Good, bad, ugly, it didn't matter. Sometimes you know, I would challenge people to just think about, maybe it's things parents have said, old girlfriends have said, your wife has said, coaches, maybe it's on job, you know, evaluations, assessments you've done about yourself, whatever. What do I think about myself? Like when I think, who am I? What rolls around in my head? And once you get a nice long list of these things, they could be positive things like, hey, I'm gifted at teaching, or I'm a leader, or whatever. But it can also be some things that aren't so pretty, right? And some things you may be carrying with you from the time you were really, really young and didn't really realize it. Hey, I'm not confident in this kind of situation. But then you step back and you look at your life and you think, man, why am I not confident? I'm like the most experienced guy in this area. I've done exceptionally well. I've had all these achievements, this, that, whatever, yet there's still this thing. And it could be a relationship with a parent where I just never felt like I was good enough, or, rejection at some time in my life that I never fully dealt with, or whatever. And so you go through there and you start to highlight those things that you say, hey, this is not true. It's not true about me. And I got to start getting that out of my thinking, and in some cases I need to understand where the root cause, where that came from, and fix that. I might have to have a conversation with a parent or somebody from the past, but you need to put that to bed. But I also take a look at the things that are true, but that I just don't like.
Correct.
Years ago, I had to look at myself and say, hey, dude, you're fat. You're out of shape.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
Straight up David Goggins right there. If you're fat, say you're fat. If you're dumb, say you're dumb. And it's not a pity party. It's not like you get stuck in the victim, but you got to be raw and honest with where the hell you are.
Hey, this man that we're talking about, that strong man, is an authentic man. That starts with you. Like we need to be truthful with ourselves.
Yep.
Like we can't sit there and look at ourselves like the world is doing, right? We can't sit there and say, oh, I'm good the way I am. No, dude, you're fat. You're not in good shape. It's time to get your tail in gear and start working, And so, and so I went through that list and I identified those things and said, hey, bud, you really need to, these are things you need to work on. And so I identified those as things that, hey, I don't necessarily like about myself right now, where I'm at today, but I can do something about it. So that became my work list. That became the things that I was going to start zeroing in on to say, well, I'm going to fix that, and so eventually, if you put the work in, and it's consistent work that wins the game, right? Discipline, consistent work, grit, right? It's grit, right? And so it's just staying after it. Nothing is going to hinder me from working on this thing and being consistent about it. And all of a sudden you wake up one day and that thing that was a weakness has now become a strength. And now you have to update your mind. Now you need to say, now you need to look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey man, I can't call myself fat. I'm not fat. I'm jacked. So I need to start thinking of myself that way. And the physical is the easy example to use, right? But that goes with everything else though too. It becomes, hey, I'm afraid to speak in front of people. I don't like that about myself. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put myself in positions. I'm going to join something like Toastmasters, or I'm going to start doing presentations at work or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, one day you wake up and you say, man, I'm good at speaking in front of people. That is no longer a weakness. It's a strength. Man, you start changing all these things and then update your mind every time. That's why I say you got to revisit your list. And you update your mind and you start saying, nope, it's no longer true about me. It is now not a weakness, it's a strength. I'm strong here now. I'm strong here now. I'm strong here now. And I just started picking away at those things. For me personally, I just started picking away at those things and said, okay, I don't like these things about me, but I can do something about it. And when I'm in FOE, I got a guy that's been there. So I can always kind of, hey, anybody ever deal with this? Yep, that was me. Okay, dude. Tell me how you did it.
Yep.
I take what that guy tells me. I write down, okay, I need to put this in my daily routine. And I start hammering away, man. And all of a sudden, one day you wake up, it's a strength, you know? And then the last piece was just looking at that list and looking at the things that you do like about yourself. Like, these are things that God made me to do. You know, for me, you know, I know God made me to lead and to teach, a coach. That's just who I am, man. I love to inspire men. I love to teach men. I won't teach anything I haven't done myself. Like, if I'm going to share something with you and I'm going to say, here's how I went from point A to point B, or here's a way you can go from point A to point B, it's not going to be some theory.
Yep.
It's going to be something I did. Right? I'm going to say, hey, this is how I did this. Now, is it going to fit you perfectly? Probably not, but you'll be able to take some chunks out of that, and you'll be able to say, I'm going to put my twist to this and my twist to that.
Well, I just had Timothy Regal on yesterday. Who says he's a friend of yours.
Great man. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And what I really appreciated about him, which, you know, earlier in the conversation, the ability to just say, this is my shit, like, just as a matter of fact. And as you were just saying, the ability to turn the negative into positive, that was something that held me back for so long. What are people going to think about me? I watch porn. I've been doing it for years. I'm so much in my own head. Now I'm at the place where, like, no, I'm going to make a podcast. I'm going to talk about it, and I'm not going to be a victim about it. I'm going to share it. And what's so true is what you just said, which I really, for a long time, one of the reasons why, and this brings me to 2 points. One of the reasons why I didn't really want to talk to anybody is because there's so much knowledge world where it's like, oh, I'm going to go to a therapist who read about this in a book for 10 years. That doesn't tell me that. I'd rather speak with someone, for example, like Timothy yesterday, where he went through it. He went through the guilt and the shame and not understanding what it is to be a man, to be able to express himself, you know, in a sexual dynamic in a world that's saying toxic masculinity, right, is a bad thing. So now how men are told to be more in touch with their feelings, but we could dive into that too, the importance of polarity of relationships. What are the necessary roles of a man, and then the ones that maybe don't matter as much, right? The ones that a man and a woman can do, but what are the ones that really create desire in a fulfilling relationship? But the other thing that you mentioned too was, and this is also on your blog, and we've talked about before, as iron sharpens iron in the Bible, so one man sharpens another. So maybe branching off that, because we talk about a lot in our calls. What is that balance for men? Because, you know, and I'll share how I see it, and then, you know, pass it to you. For me, I think a man should bear his burden, take on as much responsibility as he can, as you said, identify those weaknesses and those strengths, and be with that pain, not to the point where you're hurting yourself. I can't speak for everybody, but to the point where you can really take on as much responsibility as you can for other people so that they can lean on you. But when those times are really, really rough, reach out to someone who is going to help you. And I would say specifically men need other men. I think women need other women. I mean, I'm not going to give a woman about pregnancy advice, right? So there's certain things that I can't speak of to a woman where a woman can. And so maybe if you could dive into that, the importance of that quote, because you say it often too, the importance of iron sharpens iron, and how much burden you should take on oneself.
Yeah. I look at things. I got another blog article out there about this. Okay. I look at things as I have a core, the core of where my strength comes from. And for me, the things that are in that core that make me strong in body, mind, and spirit is God, that relationship with God, the self, I'll call it the self-love, how I build my body, mind, and spirit, the routines that I do every day. You know, I get up at 4:15 every morning. I do that because I know I won't be interrupted. I know I will get that in every single day. I will work my body. I will go through something to get my mindset right. and I will work on the spiritual side before I hit the day. So I'm strong. I'm ready for that day. Right. And so I do that every single morning, doesn't matter what day of the week it is. So in that core is God, that self, and my brothers, my strong brothers, the ones that I know I can lean on. And then outside of that core. And so that's where I gain my strength. That's where I go when I got something that's really, really weighing heavy on me and I'm struggling with something. Maybe I did something and I'm not happy about how I did it and I want to talk through it, or, I'm mad at myself because I did whatever. That's where I go. I will take that stuff to God. I'm very honest with God. My relationship with God is such that, and I see this in the Bible with David and the Psalms and how he prayed out to God and everything. He just let it all hang out. And that's how I am. If I got something that really burdens me, I'm letting it out to the Lord. Hey, I'm really mad about this. I don't like how this worked, whatever. I just lay it out with God. I'll lay things out with my brothers too. Like if I need somebody just to talk through something, that's where I will take that. And then again, building those routines. So then that's where I gain my strength, body, mind, spirit. Then I go out to the next ring, which is my immediate family. So I want to be strong. I want to be, I say my mission statement is honor God, be true to the man in the mirror, and be a rock for those around me. Yeah, that's what I want to be. Yes, that is it. That's what I want to be. Okay. And so that comes from that core. And then I go outside of that to the next ring, which is my immediate family, my wife and my son. Then I go outside that, it'd be my extended family and my friends. And then it goes out to the workplace, and then it goes out into the community. It goes out into the world. When I'm strong, I will go out further. When I feel myself starting to unravel and I'm like, I'm tired, I'm feeling heavy, I'm burdened, whatever, I start to simplify life. I cut out those rings, I start to make it smaller, and I get closer, I get down into my core again. Okay, it's time I got to recheck. What's my walk with God like? What's my routine like? Did I mess up my routine, my body, mind, and spirit? And do I need to have a discussion with the brothers and work myself through something that I'm stuck on? Right. So I'll go back to that core, get strong again. I start to work my way out. Right. And that's
really a great analogy. That really is great.
That's the way I think. And I had to, I was explaining this to some guys one time, and I was trying to figure out how do I explain that. And that's how I came up with those circles, because I was like, okay, that's it. That's about as close as
specifically what really resonated me with that, because of my own conflict. Like, I want to be the man. I don't want to put my burden, but I'm also human. I'm going to have shit where I need help. Right. So, but that is perfect. I love how you said it's like, when you're strong, expand it. Right. Because when you're feeling good, that's what I do with my channel. When I'm feeling good, I'm like, bam, let's hit record, put out a good message, reach out to friends, reach out to people who, maybe he was a little off. But then when those times when I'm like, I need people that I can really trust, I'm like, you know what? I feel weak today. I feel this, I feel that. Some of the strongest men, will have that capacity to be in that, to be real about like, hey, you know what? I may be doing all these successful things, but I'm human too,
Absolutely. And that's, again, that's the strength in having brothers. That's the iron sharpening iron, so, and I see that, I just think a man is called a man, in my opinion, based upon what I read in scripture. I think that a man is designed to bring strength into the world. That's what we're designed to bring into this world. Strength in body, in mind, in spirit, we bring strength. That's a core piece of masculinity in my mind, is that we bring strength. And with that strength comes structure and protection and provision and presiding over our family. And you know, there's a lot that comes with that. But the core in my mind is always strength. And I think of it as strength in body, mind, and spirit, because I think they're all interrelated. You know, when your body's strong, you know this, when your body's strong, you think clearly.
Yeah.
Like it's just, and when you work your body, it's always a mental game. Like I wake up at 4:15 in the morning, man. Yep. And 50% of the time I don't want to do what I'm about to do. Yep. Like I don't want to get up.
Yeah, we shared those posts back and forth where it's like, I didn't want to go to the gym today, so I did. I didn't want to wake up early. I wake up often at 4:30 as well. I don't want to do that. Some days I just want to sleep.
Yes. And people are like, oh yeah, I'm just not like that. And I'm like, you know, dude, neither was I.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if I succumb to my feelings, I wouldn't be that guy either, you know, but I also experienced the bad side of not being that kind of man. Right. So when I wasn't that kind of man, you know, there was pain. You know, there's pain when you have people around you that you know you're supposed to be leading in a certain way and you realize you're not. There's pain that comes with that. There's pain that
comes of discipline or pain of regret.
Yes, there's pain that comes with, you know, battling things like porn and losing that battle and the shame that comes with it and all that kind of stuff, right? And the inverse is so much better, man. This life that I live today, winning those battles and all those kinds of things. So when I get up at 4:15 in the morning and I'm like, oh man, I really don't feel like getting up to do it. All I do, this is what I do every time. I'm thinking, do you want to go back? Do you want to go back where you were?
You know what's cool? That gives you a freedom, right? It's not like I can't do that, because I think for me, I went through a phase where I would tyrannize myself. I can't do this. And that's no, like, do you want that? Being honest, because all you have to do is say, do you want to live like that?
Exactly.
You can do whatever you want, free will. But your higher self, no, we already experienced that. And that becomes that negative that turns into a positive. I'm glad I went through that so I could see that. And now I'll never do that. I won't live like that. Detest mediocrity.
Plus I hang out with guys like Zach Small and Anthony and those guys in FOE, right? And they're like, dude, you ain't going back. You know, you're not going back. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm not. But it's, you know, I don't have to go to that. I just run with a crowd of guys that are all on that path, man, you know, and you know, it's a cool place to be. But that's a lot of times, man, that's what I fall back to. I fall back to, you know, that discipline comes from, hey, I know what it's like to be on the other side. So to your point, am I going to have the pain of discipline, or am I going to have that pain of complacency and comfort?
Yeah, and I think that is really the core of real brotherhood too, because to go through that is, I think, to be whole, like to be a truly good man, and I use that word specifically good because it's not a nice guy. A good man is someone who is whole. Someone who is whole has the ability to say, to look another man who is sharing his pain, saying, it's not your fault, brother, but what are you going to do about it? And both of those are necessary, because if it's what are you going to do about it, there's no empathy there. But if it's just empathy, well, that doesn't make a man grow out of his own problems, because a real man, to me, is the ability to have both of those worlds. You know, I think of like Good Will Hunting, right? Like Robin Williams in that movie was the ability to say, like, he spoke to him straight. Like there's a scene where he's like, he goes, you say all this shit, but you're a weak, insecure little boy inside. You know, you could speak that you did all, but you never smelled the Sistine Chapel. You've never woken up next to a woman who you absolutely love, like that. And then the ability to, the scene of where he says it's not your fault, right? Because we're born into this world of sin. We're born into our parents or our cultures of wrong ideologies, but they were doing the best that they could too. They did the best with what they got. And shifting gears just a little bit, because I actually started this conversation, we're not even talking about what I wanted to talk about, but this is all great. This is one of my favorite podcasts, truly, like so far. It's just, I love conversations that just flow, but I really wanted to go into, you have a blog post you spoke about with your father, and my father will most likely be seeing this podcast as well. We've spoken multiple times, and I've really grown close with him, and I've seen, through your blog, how close you were with your father. And, I read your blog, and there was 3 things you learned from your father of many other things, but the importance of making great memories, saying what most wish they had said, making your eternal destiny sure. Maybe if you could just go, and it doesn't have to just be those 3, like speaking about the lessons that your father taught you and the importance of fathers, and because it's all connected, brotherhood, fathers, good friends, they're all connected in those who embody that. And I see that in you, which clearly you got from your father as a big part, and a big part for me that I have, that I've gotten closer with my father, because for years we were always close, but I've never been so close in the past couple of years as I've understood the importance of that, which you were lucky to have as long as you have had as well.
Yeah. I had an awesome father, and he was, so it's my brother and I, we're 2 years apart. He's younger than me. And, but we tell people that, we drew the golden ticket when it came to fathers, and so my dad taught us a lot of lessons. He developed us into men, and he developed us, we didn't know it at the time, but he enabled us to be leaders in this world, and just by the lessons that he taught us, but that article that you talked about, I could go on for a long time about my dad. I spoke at his funeral. That also is on my blog.
Yeah.
And I said a lot of things about my dad in there that are pretty cool. And but yeah, these 3 lessons, I kind of took a look at that article again and read it again. And like I told you, I had to kind of gather myself up, because it's a little emotional for me to read my way through that.
For sure.
But the importance of making great memories. The one thing that my dad always did is he always made things exciting. It was like, first of all, he was crazy. He would do crazy things all the time. So you never knew what was coming with my dad. And so all my buddies and everything, they loved being around. They're like, they would come to our house all the time, and they just never knew what he was going to do. I mentioned in that article, we went to paintball.
You put the,
this was outdoor paintball, right? And so it's a 2-hour drive. And my dad said, "Hey boys, I want you all to meet at the house, and I want you in your camo, and we're gonna all put on our face paint before we ride up there." Well, we were riding up there in like 3 or 4 Jeeps with the tops off, packed into this thing. And my dad was riding with a buddy of his who had a Harley with a sidecar. And so here we are riding 2 hours on a highway, all of us camoed out, face paint, camo bandanas around our heads. I mean, it looked like commandos going in, riding down the highway. So, and of course, it was just kind of craziness all the way there. By the time we got there, we were just fired up, and of course we slaughtered everybody. It was just like we were fired up, so we had a great time. But my dad would do that. He was a coach, and he always he had a way of making things really special, and he would always call attention to details. He understood people, and so he picked up on the things that made people special. My brother was very athletic. and so on my side, I wasn't nearly as talented as my brother, but my dad saw early on in me, he would always tell me this. He's like, hey, Jared, one thing I know is nobody will outwork you. You will outwork anybody because you just don't give up. And I said this in his tribute. I don't know if that was really true when I was younger or not, but he spoke it into me so many times, it became true.
Yeah.
So whether it was something that he saw in me and he just drew it out and made it, amplified it, but that's what fathers can do, man. Fathers, the actions and words of a father are extremely powerful. And the more and more you work with men, the more you realize that, because it's going to do one of two things, and you see it. It's either going to be something that a man is going to have to overcome in order to be successful in life. Like he's going to have to deal with some things that his father said to him or did to him that weren't so positive, or it's going to catapult them to great heights in the world because of what that father said and did with that son. And you see how powerful that is. But he made great memories. And so when he passed away, I have all these memories, over here on my wall. These are all pictures of me and my dad and my brother. And, they're all memories, man. I can tell you things that happened with each photograph. Right. And so I have these great memories that I can always hang on. The importance of saying what most wish they had said. This is just, how many times have you heard people say when somebody passes away, that's like, man, I wish I would have said this, or I wish this, right? And my dad, he made it a habit of making sure that we knew how he felt about us. Like he, myself, my brother, we were always telling each other how much we loved each other, how much we cared for each other, how much we appreciated. When I sent him Father's Day cards, I sent him things that said, hey, I just want to let you know, because of the kind of father that you have been to me, it makes it easy for me to understand the Heavenly Father in the Bible. Because I know what a father's love is like.
Yeah.
I can receive that love. And so it makes it easy for me to receive the Heavenly Father's love, because I've had this relationship with you, and the way that the way he loved me. I said to everybody, it's painful. Losing your father is a painful thing. But that pain, as great as it is sometimes, it's just a reminder, man, I was loved well. I was loved well, man. And that's where, and when that pain wells up and it's hard because he's not here and I can't just pick up the phone and talk to him anymore. I thank God. I'm like, God, I just thank you that I had the father that I had. I know that I was loved well. That's why it hurts, so we would always make it a point, and I challenge guys to just say, hey, you really need to think about, the people around you that you really care about. If they were taken suddenly and you didn't have a chance to say anything else to them, did you say it all? If you didn't, you got work to do, man. Get it said. Say the things that if they were gone, you wish you would have said. And we did that all the time, because when I went down there to see, when I got the call on a Sunday that my dad was going on a ventilator, and they thought he was going to recover. Like, they weren't really that concerned. But me and my spirit, I was like, I told my wife, I got to go. I texted my boss. I said, I'm going. Boom. I went down there. My brothers tell me, hey, man, I don't think they're going to let you in. And I said, hey, well, one of two things are going to happen. I'm either going to see my dad or I'm going to be on the news tonight because I'm going in, And so by the time I got there, they were cool. They let me in, right? Which was good, good for them. But anyway, but I went in there and he was fully sedated. I never had another conversation with him. I don't know if he heard me or not, but everything I said, I had said before.
Yeah.
So, and I told him that as I stood there, it was just he and I in the room. I grabbed his hand and I just told him everything that I'm about to say to you. I know I've said to you before, and I know you already know this, and I know how you feel about me. I know you respect the kind of man I am today. I know you love me. I know how you care about me, and I'm good. Like, there's nothing more you need to say to me. And if you can hear me, be cool with that, man. You're good. We're good. We're solid because of the man that you've been. So that was a tough thing to go through. But then the last one was making your eternal destiny sure. I said this was the most important one. Because I know that my dad had a relationship with the Lord, I knew where he was going. And the Bible speaks about how, we don't mourn like the world mourns. We as Christians, we mourn. Our mourning is different because our mourning is, we know that there's a day coming when I'll see him again. Like, I know I'll see him again. This is just a pause. This is just a pause in that relationship, right? And so knowing that, and knowing that he had that peace of understanding where he was going when it was all over, in that room at night, when he was dying, I was on the one side and my dad remarried, so his wife was on the other side and my brother was at his feet. And that's exactly the way he wanted it. He's like, when I die, I want Judy and you and Bill there. And so I was standing there and we were holding his hand and everything. And I was watching him take his last breaths. And, every breath he would take, he would be like, man, is that it? And then he'd take one more, and then finally it was his last breath. But there was so much peace in that room. Like, it was no struggle. Like, he just glided off, man. And it was, and I remember it was like it was really obvious, like how much peace was in that. It's hard for me to describe. I can't adequately describe it. But I remember saying to my brother and Judy, and they both felt the same thing. I'm like, man, it's like God is here, man. It's just so peaceful. And that's the second time I experienced that. I experienced early on with my grandfather. And those two experiences were rock solid for me, man. Like, I'm like, all right, I don't have anything to be afraid of.
Yeah, see, when I hear that, to me, that's real shit, and it makes me, when I first made this channel, I was just kind of talking with different people, just about life. But you just sharing that reaffirms to me the avenue that I want to take, what these conversations are mostly about. And that is, fatherless homes. And the fact that you got to experience that piece, right? There's a lot of men out there who are alcoholics. There's a lot of men out there who are struggling, different addictions, and they don't have those brothers. They don't have those people in their life that they don't, maybe they hear about their father passing away as just a matter of fact. And that's, and you think about all the pain in our world. And it's like, the fact that you have that is like such a blessing. And even like, I'm not going to speak on your pain. I can't have that. I still have my father in my life, but I sense how real you're speaking. And that's just like, I want that for my kids when I get older. You know, I don't have kids now, but that's what I would want. Or if I don't have kids, that my brothers have that feeling. The question of what are you going to like at your funeral, who's going to be there? Why are they going to be there? What impact did you have on other people? In my addiction, I never really, it was kind of just in a thought. As I get older, I just realize how powerful that is. That's what his story is what I want.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, that's cool, man. That's neat for me to hear. I was just hiking with my son today.
Yeah, so your post.
Yeah, and he and I were talking. We always have great conversations when we're hiking, and I highly recommend that for those of you that got sons, is get out there and do adventures. Then they just open up and a relationship builds. But one of the things that we talked about there is I told him, I said, hey, bud, all this stuff that I write about, and he and I, we have a lot of these conversations, but he's 18 and, but I tell him, I leave all this stuff for you. And as you grow and become a man, I want you to read this stuff. This is your dad. This is my struggles. These are the things that I worked my way through. This is how I did it. These are all the things I'm writing this because I have a real burden for men. I want men to win. Like, I don't want men to go through the stuff that, the pain, the things that I've touched in the world that caused me pain because I wasn't on the right path. All those lessons I've learned. I want that for other men, like deeply, like God put that on my heart. My heart burns for other men. I want them to experience winning. Above all that, I want that for my son. And I told him that today. And I said, all this stuff that I'm doing out here and all this stuff, I want that for you. Like, I want you to win in this life. I want you to be so much better than I am. I want you to read that stuff, and again, he's an 18-year-old, so he may not be interested in all those kind of things. And that's cool. It took me 25, 26 until I finally got my head screwed on at least halfway, right? For me to start thinking about life in a mature way. But yeah, that's that same kind of thing that my dad with me, now I'm handing that legacy, building that legacy for my son. Because he built a legacy for us, and then now I'm building that for my son, and all this stuff that I'm doing with Men of Grit and everything, it's for men and everything, but it's also, hey, son, I'm creating a path here. You build your own path, but I want you to learn, I want you to learn from the things that I've learned, yeah, so.
My father
It was a good conversation, man. I have such good conversations when we're on the trail. Yeah. At home, it might be, yeah, no, maybe, right? The one word answers. But when we get on the trail, man, we talk about all kinds of great things.
Yeah. My father always says the one wish that he has is that I know that he loves me. Like, and I know that may obviously, right, that the parents want that, but it just hits a different note when he's saying that, right? Like, to me, I hear it's like, it's the father's love. It's not like, I love you, right? Think about how many people say, I love you. Truth is, they didn't really love it. They just said it. It was just a matter of fact. They did things that reflected love, but it wasn't embodying love. And I feel that with my father,
that's you hit on a point here. Right. And you said obvious, but I'll tell you, Michael, I think men need to hear this. You're a father out there. You need to understand your words and your actions both are required. Like, I want men to think about this. Don't sit out there and think, well, he should know by what I do that I love him. Bullshit. Tell him you love him. Son, I want you to know how much I love you. And then show him also, but do both, right? And men need to be told that, because there's a lot of men, if you know, as you're dealing with men, and I've worked with a lot of men over the years, a lot of men didn't have that, man. Well, I know my dad loved me because of this, that, whatever, but you know, did he ever say it? No, he never really said it. I don't think I ever heard those words come from my dad. It's like, man, that's, you know, that's why I say a father is a powerful position. And you're setting the trajectory for a life, for a man. And our world needs strong men.
Yeah.
And fathers are at the front lines, man.
Yeah.
Fathers build strong men. And I had one that built not just me, but my friends around me and everybody. He was really good at that, man.
Yeah. Well,
we could go on for a long time, brother. Yeah, we could go on for a long time.
Yeah, there was a lot of other stuff that I did want to get to, but you know, we can save that for another conversation. You know, Jerry, I really appreciate our conversations. Really, like truly, like you know, you're doing great things, and I wish you well continued. And just to repeat again, how people can follow you, because you got a good message that needs to be heard.
Yeah, I'm most active on Twitter at men_of_grit. So men of grit. So men_of_grit. I'm also on Instagram, same men_of_grit. Those are the two places. menofgrit.blog is where my blog is. Men of Grit is all one, it's all one word, so there's no spaces in there. menofgrit.blog. That's where I write. I post a lot of articles in there. These are, again, a lot of them are things that I've gone through myself, and things that I've written to try to help men, you know, out of the similar situations that I was in, things that I've found that have been very helpful to help build a strong man.
Well, thank you again, Jerry. Appreciate it. And definitely check out his stuff. I mean, this man's the real deal here. So
appreciate it, Michael. Always a good time, bud.